Dear viewers, welcome to yet another edition of Expert Speaks. We have done so many videos on retirement planning, but every time I produce a video on retirement planning, my audience is all ears. Retirement is a complex game. Ignorance is not bliss. Your negligence can land you into a big trap. In today's episode, the expert of the week, Nikhil Wagis, a specialist on succession planning, retirement, and a man who has spent so many number of years looking at the life of so many retired person, is going to talk to you about how you can create a safe retirement. This is NRI Money Clinic for you, and I am Dr. Chandrakant Bhatt, your financial guide for a happy living.
NRI Money Clinic. No hype, just the right advice.
3 years or more. That's how long it can take for your family to recover your assets. This delay in asset recovery means your loved ones won't have access to their inheritance when they need it the most. Create your will today.
Dear viewers, to talk about the retirement planning, I have brought to the studio my popular faculty member, Mr. Nikhil Wagis. Mr. Nikhil Wagis is no new person to you all. He has produced so many videos. He is a friend of the retirees, a friend of people who want to save their life's earnings during the retirement journey. Mr. Nikhil Wagis has produced many videos on my channel earlier. He has a startup which is dedicated to succession planning, wills, executor services, and so many other things. He is a friend of a retired person. Educational qualification-wise, he is a chartered accountant by profession. He has more than 15 years of experience working in succession planning, mergers and acquisition, and related topics. He has been the regional head of India's one of the largest wealth management platform in the field of succession planning and estate planning. In the recent years, he has started his own startup by name Yellow. Yellow is a dedicated technology platform for creating the wills and related services for the benefit of retirees and every other person. Welcome to the show, Mr. Nikhil Wagis. We are all ears for you. Every time you come here, you bring new perspectives into the retirement planning. Welcome to the show, Nikhil.
Thank you, Mr. Chandrakant. It's always a pleasure for me to meet, interact, and interact with your audience. And it's always an honor to be on this show. And thank you for your kind words in the introduction.
Thank you, Nikhil. You are a very interesting personality I have come across in my life. You are very young, but extremely knowledgeable when it comes to question of retirement. You have seen the retired life of so many people from close quarters. You have seen what can go right and what can go wrong, and you have helped people build such a wonderful retired life. God bless you for that. When I look at the life of many people, I divide the life into 3 portions. The first portion, the childhood, where you educate yourself, build a character, prepare yourself for life which is in front. Then a phase where you get into the career, earning phase, you become independent, and you build your career, build your finances, and prepare for that life's journey. When you're about to retire or the fag end of the career, you tend to make mistakes. People tend to do mistakes. They are so careful with the childhood days. They are careful during the career. But when it comes to question of retirement, people tend to do terrible mistakes. When it comes to question of retirement, ignorance is not bliss. Negligence can be a trap. Knowledge is power. From your experience of working with so many people, Nikhil, my first question to you is, what is that people have to do to create safety during their retirement years? Give me the perspectives from what you have seen in life. You have seen so many lives. Let me hear from you.
No, great question. And this is something which everyone needs to consider, especially the ones at the retirement age, because there are multiple things that various countries provide with respect to retirement, various benefits in terms of lifestyle needs, medical and whatnot. And this varies from countries to country. But the very important point is that what are the 3-4 items that one should consider on their mind while looking at retirement life is one, or rather, how do you put this? Let's look at what are the aspects or factors one should keep in mind with respect to retirement so that things are taken care of, safety net is built. right? One being that though you could have country, like I said, countries provide for pension benefits, etc., but access to that kind of varies depending on jurisdictions. Sometimes there is trouble accessing the same. The second being the fact that your citizenship status. You could be a citizen of X country, but a resident of another country, which could impact your tax implications and compliances that one need to look at, right? Because at retirement, you're not looking at tax optimization, but you're purely looking at where is the right comfort zone for me to, be there, mingle with the family, friends. That circle is what you're building so that your retirement life is more enjoyable because of the wealth, etc., that you've created in the past. Now you're trying to relax and be there, right? And for that, the community around you, people around you is very important, where you intend to miss aspects, taxation aspect. That's something which one need to keep in mind and build aspects around it. We can talk in detail in some of these things later. The third being that inheritance, right? You are building assets, like you rightly said. You spend 1/3 of your life building a career for yourself. The second third, you try to build the wealth, partial wealth that you built, you grow it into a sizable chunk. And now the third aspect is third life part of your life is essentially when you retire, you enjoy that wealth that you have created and also seamlessly transfer it to your nearest kin and loved ones, right? And that planning, if not done right, could put you in trouble and may also put your family at distress, right? How do you plan this? Is that these are various aspects that one should really, really factor in when you look at your retirement life. Of course, it's time to relax, not do too many activities, but these are very important aspects.
Nikhil, while you mentioned the different aspects of retirement, you mentioned about inheritance. For the benefit of my audience, can you give a little bit more knowledge towards this inheritance related aspect? What is that the retirees have to do about it, or when should the planning start? What are the perspectives that my audience need to know with respect to this inheritance related issue?
Great question, Mr. Chandrakant. Inheritance is a very, very pertinent question for senior citizens. While you had a question that at what age one should start planning for inheritance or succession planning per se, in my mind, the answer is it should start young. But when it comes to retirement community, it is even more pertinent that you start looking at this much more carefully with closed aspect of saying, how do I structurally do this so that one, I am taken care of. Second, my family is not put into distress and there is smooth asset transfer process, right? Therefore, everybody is at peace and no distresses along the way. But there are certain misconceptions, right? Everybody in this phase think, or everybody generally in India, an Indian community think that what is there if I don't do anything around it, automatically it'll go to my spouse. The answer is no, it doesn't automatically go to your spouse. Your Indian succession law determines how assets needs to be transferred. And that varies from various, depending on your religion. The formula is prescribed by the government, and that's how it gets transferred, right? Second aspect is very important that one should really, really consider is that I'm there and therefore I'm taking, not being a male dominated kind of a statement. Just generally for families, it's more about each spouse being taking care of each other, right? It's not about taking care of someone financially, but it's also the emotional support and also taking care of them in their health, right? And for this, typically you end up not talking about these things, but the very pertinent fact is that when one of them is not around, are you sure that the other person is taken care of, both physically, mentally, as well as financially, right? And that how do you one plan for this? All of this comes within the overall in terms of planning from a succession standpoint. Both though there it's more financial aspect, but some of these aspects come in naturally. But going beyond that, some families or people don't think in detail about how one these needs to be done, don't put too much time and effort around this planning, and therefore end up in situations or trap which really is not pleasant. I can take example of Raymond's family, right? Mr. Singania, he gifted most of his assets to his son and expecting that he will take care of him. Today, all of us know that he is fighting the case for his lifestyle needs and he's going pillar to post in terms of getting that done for his right. Things could have been planned better. This was done in without too much thought, saying that my son will take care of me. See, the issue is all about saying, isn't it obvious, that this is how it will happen. You can't predict life. You can't predict people's emotion. You can't predict how people will react. And if you could do that, I don't think we need to plan for anything at all. We know exactly what is going to come our way. That is not the case. Life is really, really uncertain. Therefore, you have created these assets. You need to be selfish to ensure your lifestyle and your spouse's lifestyle needs are immediately taken care of no matter what. And thereafter, let the others get. And therefore, that can be done in very structured fashion, not doing things in haste, saying that, okay, I'll just gift all my assets. While it's a very simple way of getting things done, you're losing control. And that is not very, very ideal scenario, because once you lose control, to get back control is not easy. And you have seen this. I just took the case of Singhania family, but there are, if you talk to many around you, you would have heard enough and more cases on this, which is not famous out there, but you'll have first and second hand experience on people having this situation, and therefore it becomes very important. The other important aspect is that inheritance, again, why we are insisting on that so much is because the inheritance law vary from country to country. Especially your audience are in multi jurisdictions. You may have assets outside India, assets in India. The way the inheritance law work is different for each jurisdiction, and therefore planning from that perspective, take care into these multi jurisdictional complexities is very important. Second, you should know where your ultimate beneficiaries are. When you're not there, who does get these assets? And their country of jurisdiction is also very important, because assets in India are not fully repatriable outside India, right? And therefore, planning around this in a very, very holistic manner. Now that you have time, it's the right time to put your mind and efforts towards saying, consolidate, saying what are my assets, so that my families know these are my set of assets. Create a will is a first basic step, wherein you consolidate assets and lay out your wishes, saying this is how my assets need to get transferred. But if there are complex family situations wherein you are in one country, children are in the other jurisdictions, how to ensure repatriability, how to ensure planning from estate duty implications in those jurisdictions, jurisdictions outside India. Example, US, UK, Canada, Australia have direct or deemed estate duty provisions. How do you plan for all of it becomes very, very important from an estate duty or from an inheritance standpoint. And that I think I went pretty much overboard in terms of why inheritance planning is important. But it's a very detailed topic, changes from people, situations, facts. I can go on and on about it, but the fact is that there is a lot one need to do before one, like I said, divide into two parts. One, be selfish and take care of yourself. Then is when you should look at how assets gets transferred, and that planning is very important so that you're not in distress.
Nikhil, I heard you. It appears that all the time the financial planners think about three portions of life. You are opening up the fourth portion of life beyond, or the duties beyond exit from this world, which is as important as the three aspects of it. There is a problem with the parents. They are filled with love towards their children. That's natural. But they tend to forget that children become grown up and the equations will change. When you become older, you are not strong. You are getting weaker and you need support. You are becoming like a child. It's the duty of the child to take care of the aged one. Whether that happens or not, we do not know. But you should understand, or the audience or the retiree should understand, your equation with a grown-up child should be on a different platform. Don't try to become heroes by gifting everything to children, hoping and thinking that they will think very good about you. They are grown up. They think like grown ups, and their priorities in life are different. They are exposed to pulls and pushes of life. So be prepared, be knowledgeable, and be prepared for the worst possible consequences. It is your responsibility to create a good life during your retirement. You shouldn't be moving around, taking control of the properties, your monies, and what will happen. And you have an obligation to take care of your spouse beyond your life. And if data is to be believed, women live longer than men. And more than 80% of the women live longer than men, which means to say you have a duty to take care of your spouse. And that's just not by intention, but a documentation planning. So ignorance is definitely not bliss, and your action is the one which will dictate how your retired life will be, or how will be the retired life post your exit to your spouse. I have a lot of questions, Nikhil. I'll ask you a couple of questions for want of time. Probably I'll do one more video with you on these aspects. Let me ask you my next question. Nikhil, you mentioned so many points. The story of Sunil Singhania of Raymond's has been there in the press. a sensational story. If this can happen to Mr. Singhania, it can happen to anyone. You have seen this case from very close quarters. You have studied this. Taking this as an example, or what you have seen, how do you think the retirees should plan themselves to avoid similar situations? What is that they can do to avoid such unpleasant situations in life?
Again, great aspect that one should really place emphasis on is that as an estate planner, my advice to every individual is that ceding control of your asset is a very important decision in life. Because once you cede control, you can't take it back. Now, there are ways and means in which you look at providing for it. All that you need to do is step back and see what is the objective that you want to achieve, right? Before making certain life decisions in terms of gifting, etc. What has happened in the case that we are talking about, and while that's a known personality and therefore we are taking names, but this is something which happens very commonly, right? And it's not something which is uncommon. And therefore, if you look at situations, elderly people have a very high tendency of gifting assets to children, and not with the hope, rather with the confidence that it's my child, they will take care of me. If I'm in need, I'll be taken care of. But unfortunately, like you rightly summarized, that is not how life works, and there can be life situations change, and equation between families change, and therefore you could be in really high distress, and therefore there are very simple aspects one need to look at. Just go back to the objective and say, what are you trying to achieve? Is your objective to say that I'm trying to gift these assets so that tomorrow they don't struggle with the overall transfer process, or is it children are in need of certain financial assistance, and that's why I'm doing this? We just need to understand what the real objective is and then plan accordingly. And gifting is not the first answer to this, right? If your objective is to say that there is some financial distress and therefore I need to support, you could gift only to that extent so that their financial needs are taken care of. Not everything needs to be gifted. But just going by example, right? And the objectives could be multifold. But the other objective, like I said, if it's way to say that I don't want my children to run around between every sub-registrar's office for transfer of assets when I'm not around, and therefore I want to gift it today, definitely gift it. But you could do one other additional things, or rather two aspects that one could consider. One, to say that I gift it today, but I can have a condition to say that I retain life interest on the property, which would mean to say that I have the interest to stay, or I have the right to stay back in that property, or I have the right to take any benefits arising from this property. Because property can be either a place that you live in, or it could be a property that generates a rental yield. Right, both situations arises. You can have the life interest to have the right to stay in that property, or have the life interest to retain all the incomes that is arising from that property, so that during your life, situations are very clear. All benefits arising from the property, you have the right to enjoy it. When you're not there, already your assets are gifted to your children or whoever it is, and therefore they get the benefit out of it, and there is smooth transmission. The second way you can look at it is that, no, I don't want to go about this, but to ensure there is clearly a safety net, and not go back to the story that we spoke about, is that there is a clear provision. And if you look at France and Germany, they have provisions within their legislation to ensure children take care of the parents' lifestyle needs. India also has a similar provision, which is senior citizen welfare. Essentially, we look at Senior Citizenship Protection or Welfare Act, right? Wherein there are provisions within this legislation to say that you could gift a property to your loved ones with a condition that your basic necessities are taken care of. If you fail to meet this basic condition, I can go back and revoke the transfer or make a showcase that the gift was null and void, which would mean that you've gifted the asset, but you still have a leash to say that my needs to be taken care of, otherwise this property is not yours. Right? These are things which are there within the Indian legislation that one need to understand and plan accordingly. All that you need to do is one clause in the gift deed. If Mr. Singhania had put that one clause in his gift deed, he would have got his properties back. That's why I said planning is very important before you take any action.
One can enact laws, one can have all the facilities in the law, but if people are ignorant, people just don't probe, people don't prepare, nothing can prevent the downfall of individuals. That's why I always say to people, be prepared. Ignorance is not bliss when you're becoming weak and weak year after year post your retirement. Wonderful point, Nikhil. I have one more question for you. Let me ask this question. Nikhil, during your conversation, you mentioned about the senior citizens welfare law in India. Probably we have to do an exclusive episode about what is this law, what are the provisions. Probably we'll take it up on another day. You also mentioned about during our conversation about estate duty. The case of NRI senior citizens could be slightly different. See, they live in another country. There could be inheritance tax in that country, estate duties, post demise. All these are the other complications of retired life. How does estate planning help people to manage these issues with specific reference to NRI senior citizens?
No, great question again, Mr. Chandrakant. Estate duty is something that everybody keeps hearing, right? In India, there was estate duty laws which got abolished in 85. And now currently in India, there's no estate duty or inheritance tax, so to say, right? The other jurisdictions outside of India, I mentioned in the beginning also, either direct or indirect way of, taxing inheritance. US and UK has a estate duty law which taxes transfer of assets post demise at 40%.
That's pretty heavy.
So, and the same is the case in Australia and Canada and other EU countries, right? So what is estate duty? Estate duty is essentially, the terminologies vary depending on jurisdiction. Some call it estate duty, some call it inheritance tax. In a nutshell, what does this mean is that when a individual owns an assets and passes away, when the other person were to receive these assets, could be family, could be non-family members, where whatever the wishes are, when the person receives it, somebody has to pay tax. It could be tax from one's estate, or the person receiving those assets need to shell out certain taxes before they can get access to those property. Government is saying that it's one person created the asset, you're getting it for free, getting it as a gift, might as well shell out certain taxes, right? India also has a gift tax regime, wherein that if I were to gift anything to my relatives, there's no tax. But if I gift anything to non-relatives above 50,000 in any financial year, there is tax in the hands of the recipient. The concept is the same. If you look at US has a 12 million threshold, wherein you can gift up to 12 million during your life. And if you don't utilize the 12 million threshold, that is taken towards the inheritance tax threshold. Just to give you an example, if I'm an US citizen, I have assets worth, say, 20 million, just to give an example, right? And I pass away and all my assets goes down to my children. My children have to pay on 20 minus 12, which is 12 is the threshold. On 8 million, have to pay a 40% tax. It's on the gross assets that we're talking, on the net assets that we're talking about, not income. It's on the asset itself. The asset base itself reduces by 40%. Now, the same example, if I have to go down and say, during my life, I already did a gift of 4 million from that to my children. And now I still have 20 million. Now, when I look at the threshold, that out of 12 million, 4 million during my life I've used for gifting. Therefore, only 8 million is left from that threshold. Now, when I compute estate duty post my life, it's 20 minus 8, which is 12. On 12 million, I have to pay for 40% tax. That's how the US estate duty laws work. Similar is the way in which UK also works. There is a 350,000 pounds threshold, much lower than US limits. Canada and Australia has a deemed capital gains provisions to take care of inheritance tax. Essentially, if an asset moves from non-Australian resident to Australian resident to a non-Australian resident, they deem the fair market value of the assets on the date of demise being the sale consideration. Whatever is the cost, reduce that. Whatever is the amount is the capital gains on which taxes are paid. That's how it is computed in Australia and Canada, right? The important point here is that, especially your set of audience, you may have assets in India, you may have assets in other jurisdictions. Depending on your domicile or the place where you are deemed to be of permanent resident, could be by citizenship, could be by green card, could be by permanent residency certificate and whatnot. right? Depending on that domicile fact pattern, you could be subject to inheritance tax of that particular jurisdiction. And it is not only with respect to assets in that jurisdiction, you may be subject to inheritance tax with respect to global assets. Again, going back to US citizens example, if you're a US citizen, all your global assets is considered for this inheritance tax provision. And it's not only US asset that is considered, you will include, to simplicity's sake, you'll include in US asset plus India asset. What is the overall value? Less liabilities. That amount is subject to 40% tax in the US, less the thresholds, whatever you've utilized. Another aspect that I want to highlight for US specifically is that this threshold has been increased during Trump regime. There is a sunset clause for which comes on 2026. And in 2026, this limit is supposed to go down to 6 million or so. So it's a temporary high limit which is available. And a very important point is we need to plan around this so that there are ways and means things can be planned, especially your choice of next jurisdiction where you want to settle down, where do you want to retire, where do you want to spend your retirement life. That is the planning aspect. When you start thinking about this, that's when you look at what are the complications that are there in these jurisdictions, which makes it very relevant from an estate plan. More so the points that we spoke about earlier in terms of how you're taken care of, how smoothly you can help with the overall transmission of the assets, and how we can plan for any of these tax implications, estate duty implications in those jurisdictions. That overall thought process needs to be in place. When you give effect, how you give effect, what is the mode in which you can do that, is the outcome of the overall planning. And that's where we are there to help you all.
NRIs under the belief that India is a high tax regime. But when I hear you out, the story is something different. I know exactly what's happening in US, Canada, Ireland, England. People do not realize that they are paying through their nose the taxes day in and day out. And post demise, another big chunk is going to the state. India is not all that much bad country as people, the NRIs, make it to be. Sometimes they write down in the comment that they make all kinds of comments in the comment section. But India is far, far better and is more kind with taxation to you than any of these developed world. Probably India will also take a cue at some point of time, might put in the exit tax if the assets have to be moved out of India. And it's fair enough, the assets are in India. The taxes do belong to India. Why should it be allowed to be taken by another government just because an NRI lives in another country? Nikhil, more and more I talk to you, more and more I postpone my retirement. I don't have courage to retire that easily. I have to check, recheck, make all preparations before I decide to retire one day. Finally, the safety lies in the action people take. What is the action that needs to be taken? Point 1, 2, 3 that you can mention for our audience to have a smooth retired life and makes it easy to the dependents post their demise.
Very, very important point that you made, but it's not so complex, honestly. Though if I made it sound so complex, then my apologies. But it's not very complex. But what we're trying to kind of put out here is that you should not be taking this for granted. Planning is important. You may not have to do too many things, but unless you start thinking about it, is when you'll know what exactly you need to do. Right? Bare minimum one need to do is create a will. Right? There's no two ways about it. Assets need to go to your loved ones, or it could be charity, whatever it is. Right? You have a specific wish. Capture those wishes so that post your life its assets are going in so and so direction the way you wanted it, and not let the local regulations either in the home country that you are in, or if that is India, define the Indian legislation, or the the foreign jurisdiction decide how your assets needs to be distributed. It's your assets, it's your right. You put in the wishes in terms of how it needs to be distributed. Therefore, will becomes a very, very basic document, so that is taken care of. Now, why that is also important is that by by putting together a will, what you're doing is that you have complete right over your assets during life. You have complete control over the assets during life. All that you are giving effect is once I'm not there anymore, how my assets need to get distributed. Therefore, you're avoiding any potential risk of children not looking after you, because by gifting, etc., you're losing control. Of course, we spoke about certain safety nets there, but a simple way to handle this is create a will. Create a will, and things are very clear. get it legally valid, make the will legally valid in India, like we have spoken in previous episodes. Very simple. Get the document in place, capture asset details, more identifiers, not values, and say each asset, give the specific wishes saying who gets each of these assets. Get it signed along with 2 witnesses. It becomes a valid document. If there are real estate in the details or the list of assets, have it registered. It becomes even more robust. Very simple things. First step, get it done. Second aspect is that people think POA or power of attorney I'll issue and I'll be good. What we should remember is that power of attorney is for someone to take action on your behalf. When you're not there, power of attorney becomes redundant, because power of attorney is to act on your behalf. When you're not there, you can't act on your behalf. That's the reality, right? And therefore, will is what makes more sense in that sense, right? And the last aspect is that if your situation's a little complex, where you need to plan beyond a will, things like estate duty planning, or things like protection. You want to gift assets but still retain a leash or control over it, or situations which takes care of incapacitation, because you're old, you could be medically or physically incapacitated. You need to ensure your needs are taken care of. Similarly, your spouse's needs are taken care of. How to ensure that is protected? For that, again, will could be a good answer to some extent. Beyond that, it could be also a situation of having little more advanced structures, say like a trust, etc., that can be put together so that your family needs are taken care of. All these are more, like I said, it's a very, very objective driven activity. We need to understand what exactly is your objective. From there on, start and see what is the right tool that is relevant to you from an estate planning standpoint. The very important point at the end of it is, even if you, like I said, will is a very basic document, that is a no-brainer. Be upfront to say that your situations is very simple. Don't complicate it, because complication is the worst thing to do. The last aspect here would be to say that while doing all of it, ensure that somebody has to help with the transfer of assets. Your children may be in India, your children may not be in India. Transferring Indian assets could become very, very complex, and have support or build that infrastructure in India, or take help of professionals like us with the overall transfer of asset processes. We have certain programs which help with this aspect of asset transmission at a very, very reasonable pricing. We spoke about this in the previous episodes, and that is pretty much available. You can click on our link, get onto our website. You can have a check on the programs that is available. This is a choice that is available to you, but ensure the aspect of asset transmission is become smoother for your family, enjoyable for your family, and not make it painful to really enjoy those benefits. Why I'm saying this is that I have, in my career, have seen various situations where family, specifically may not completely relate to most of your audience, but situations where, parents are in India, children are outside of India. Children have upfront told parents that I don't want any real estate from you, because it becomes very painful for me to recover these when you're not around. Right? I can't spend 6-7 months or more than a year in India to recover these assets, because I have many other things. My professional life will go to jeopardy. Therefore, keep it as liquid as possible. Indians are, love having real properties. I'm not a financial advisor, and therefore I won't get into this aspect. But towards the fag end of the life, it's always easier to manage liquid assets, because transfer and repatriation becomes simpler. These are a broad planning. I think, Mr. Chandrakant, you are better placed to address all of this to your set of customers. But from a planning perspective, estate planning perspective, at least have a will in place. We can also talk about more advanced structures. And for your executors to make their life easy and ensure that they take care of your family's interest, have an executor support plan. At least for India, we provide this, so that they don't need to run around. We do the entire heavy lifting, and ensure smooth transmission at a much faster pace happens.
Thank you, Nikhil, for all that information. Dear viewers, we keep getting service requests from you all day in India, countless of them. Individual specific situations, general subjects, people living in different geographies. And NRI Money Clinic is not just a YouTube channel. We are committed for action. We are committed to bring professionals to solve your problem. Team Yellow is one such team, which is worth its weight in gold. They solve the problem, small steps today, but can create a peace for you in future. It will be a silky smooth journey for you through the retired life and post demise as well. Never hesitate to use the services. We have referred countless upon the inquiries which have come to us to Team Hello, and the experience the customers have shared with us is something which makes us feel very proud about the team, feel very confident about the team, and feel they are very, very genuine people. We have done multiple videos of how to create will, how to avail executor services. In days ahead, we'll do more videos on practical issues which are facing retirement, nomination, senior citizen protection law, and kind of subjects that are of interest to every retiree. Here in the description box below, we have given links to various services offered by them. Do not hesitate and click on this thing now. Your action today is required to create a safe retirement for you. Do mention about your reference of NRI Money Clinic in case if you reach to them directly. Reason is, when you come through NRI Money Clinic, a handsome discount awaits you for the services provided by Chimelo. Thank you, Nikhil, for this support. And I'm very, very confident that people use your services and they will remember you throughout their life for the simple action taken by them has given them the happy retired life. Thank you very much for your courtesy to come all over, spend time, and share your knowledge to create a happy retired life. Countless NRIs spread across globe. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chandrakant. It's like I always say, it's an honor being on your channel, and whatever little that we know, we try and spread the word. And I'm more than happy to be back in your channel again, and hoping to be back again for many more such interesting topics. Great talking to you, and see you soon. Thank you so much.
Dear viewers, a sincere request with you all. Do not neglect any aspect of your retired life, be it the monetary aspect, be it your relationship with your children, be it disposal of your assets, place where you stay. Each and every point connected with your retirement has its due importance. I continue to produce videos on this subject. If it helped you to understand various aspects of retired life and gave you a power of knowledge, please do like this video. If you're a person who is watching my channel for the first time, please do subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon so every time when I release a video, you will be notified. Don't forget to share these videos with the near and dear ones in all the groups in which you are connected. Let's collectively share this knowledge and create a beautiful retired life to all of you. Thank you very much for watching this episode on NRI Money Clinic. I shall be back with you next Tuesday with yet another episode of Expert Speaks. One another subject, one another expert. Till then, stay safe.
Press the bell icon for more details and subscribe our channel.